After months of rejection, John stopped checking his emails. He was applying for jobs but didn't really get through until one night his phone rang around 2 a.m. in the night. He checks his phone and he sees it's an email from a big firm. The title said interview scheduled. He got excited, he didn't really question it, and he just went for it. The next day, he just showed up. The building looked quite normal. It was clean, quiet, expensive. Except the reception, something felt a bit off about it. There was an old man behind the desk. He approached him and he said, "I have an interview." The old man just looked at him for quite some time and he says, "You're early." He then takes out a slip and hands it over and says, "8th floor." John just takes the slips and heads to the elevator. John enters the elevator, he presses 8th floor and the elevator starts going up. There was no music, there's no sound, just a slow upward movement of the elevator. It felt like it took a little longer than it should have to reach the 8th floor though. The doors finally opened and the air felt colder. The lights were pretty dim and everyone there was just tired. Not sleepy, everyone was just exhausted. It felt like zombies were glued to their screens or something. John continues walking, looking for the interview room, but he accidentally bumps into a janitor. The janitor falls down. John gives him his hand and picks him up. The janitor just smiles at him. John asks, like, "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" The janitor just continues smiling and says, "It's okay. This doesn't hurt anymore." John just looked at him, gave an awkward smile, and continued walking. He thought to himself, like, he didn't need to be that dramatic, did he? John finally finds the room. He walks towards it and he raises his hand to knock, but the door opens automatically. John thought that's cool, like automatic doors. Inside the room, there was a man waiting for John for his interview. So John walks in and the interviewer says, "Please sit." John takes a seat and the interview begins normally. He asks simple questions like, "What's your name? Where are you from? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses?" And then suddenly the questions started changing. It started becoming a little weird. The interviewer asked John, "Do you work well under heavy pressure? Like, are you willing to just stay in one place? What about working here? If you start working here, are you willing to not leave?" John just forced out a laugh and he's like, "Excuse me? What are these questions?" The man didn't smile. He stared dead into John's eyes and said, "Some employees, they never do." Just then, John noticed something weird. He noticed a faint smell, a burning smell, and it seemed to come like from a little far away. You know that pungent smell when plastic is burning? Something like that. And soon after, John hears like some people coughing outside. Just then, the interview just abruptly ended the interview. He's like, "We'll be in touch. Thank you for coming." John didn't hesitate. He just said thank you, stood up, left the office and headed to the elevator. He reaches the ground floor and thinks that he's gonna have a word with the receptionist. But this time there was a young woman there instead of the old man. He nervously walks towards her, smiles and says, "It's a rough place up there. 8th floor seems really depressing." The lady just looks at him and says, "8th floor? There is no 8th floor." John frowned. He's like, "What do you mean there is no 8th floor? I literally just gave an interview. I just came from there." The lady just nods like, "No. Like, so there isn't no 8th floor. There used to be an 8th floor years ago, but there was a fire there and no one made it out." John was shocked. He didn't know what to think or what to believe. He decided to check for himself. He just sprints towards the elevator, presses the button, the elevator opens, he goes in, he looks at the panel, and he just goes floor 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. There is no 8th floor, not even on the panel. John is just completely lost of words. He has no idea what's real, what's fake. He just gave an interview where how is there no 8th floor? He decides that, let's just go home. He finally goes home, and that night he's like, you know what, let me just check my email again. He opens the email, it says, congratulations, you've been selected, the start date is tomorrow, 8th floor. John just ignored all of this and just assumed like none of this ever happened, continued on with his life. So, what do you think about this story? If you got an email at midnight or 2 a.m. and an interview went like this, would you go back there? Would you take that job? Oh, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.